And welcome back. Rush Limbaugh, talent on loan from God. And we go to Miami. We have Kevin, and he's 23 years old. Great to have you on the program, Kevin. How are you doing?
Rush, how you doing? First-time caller. I've been listening to your program since I can remember, more than 50% of my life. How are you doing?
I'm great, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Great. My first question is, you were just mentioning conventional wisdom, and I see that on a first-day basis, on an everyday basis, rather, firsthand, where, I joke around with my friends, and one of my biggest accomplishments in my entire life will be going through, a 4-year university and not coming out liberal. But it's ridiculous, the amount of spoon-fed misinformation that happens on a day-to-day basis in all of my classes.
It is. I actually think it's dangerous.
Yep, I agree. So my question, I guess, is were you a conservative when you were my age? And if you were, I guess, how would you deal with going against conventional wisdom on a day-to-day basis and so forth?
Oh, you mean for you in your situation now, bucking conventional wisdom, such as the liberalism that permeates campus? Is that what you mean? Yeah, once, for as long as I can remember being interested in the affairs of state and the world, my instincts have always been conservative. Now, when I was young, when I knew what I believed, and I was fairly able to explain why, but it was a while before I understood why I believe, in terms of being able to explain it to other people. And that was just a result of a product of getting older and becoming exposed to more information and other people and being interested in it. But my instincts have always been conservative. I have never wavered from them in any way. My core beliefs are what they've always been, and they've never been negotiable or up for grabs. I've never been tempted. I've never believed I was wrong. I was never, meaning I've never believed that I've made the wrong choice in matters of ideology. I'm confident and confirmed belief in my conservatism to the point I never question it. I haven't questioned it any aspect of my life when I look back on it. I don't question it now. However, I've got to pause here for a break here at the bottom of the hour. Can you hang on through it?
Sure.
Good, because I need to pepper your mind for a couple questions. Here's Kevin back to Miami. Kevin, I've had a moment to think about your call. You're saying that you're in a hostile environment now, and you were asking me if when I was your age I had to deal with the same kind of hostile environment. Was I tempted to not be as public with my conservatism? Is that close to what your question is?
Yeah, correct. They're on the ballpark. There are times where I do speak up, to voice my opinion or I guess inform or try to inform anybody around me, usually directed towards the professor. Not in an argumentative, tone, but more in an open for discussion. But the response I usually get is, either to be shunned or, well, that's not correct, or the kids around me will scoff. There are the times where I don't even speak up at all due to the attitude of the professor, just because I'm afraid it might affect my grade.
Yeah,
to me, that's more important.
That's you want the grade, and so therefore you're going to have to use that desire as your guidepost in how to behave. Now, when I was your age, I went to college just for one semester, and it was in the Midwest, and it was a school of 5,000 students, and they had enough books in the library, so it qualified as a university. But back then, the majority of the students in school were not liberal, and the professors weren't. Well, the professors were. I take it back. But I remember I was in school when Kent State happened, when the National Guard gunned down some students at Kent State in a protest. And in the English comp class that took place the week after that incident, a teacher surveyed the class, did a survey of how many people agreed with the National Guard and how many agreed with the protesters. And you're going to be shocked to learn that a majority of the class supported what the National Guard did. Now, that would not be the case today in any
no, of course not.
university.
Yeah.
Where I encountered it Kevin, was on the job. I started working. I left home when I was 20, and I went to Pittsburgh. And I worked at 2 radio stations in Pittsburgh, and I was the only conservative. Take it back. There was a second conservative at one of them, but we were never there at the same time of day. I was the only. I mean, I worked with people who thought George McGovern was the second coming. They would play Eleanor by the Turtles and dedicate it to his wife, to Eleanor McGovern. They thought it was incredible. It took every bit of restraint on my part to not even bring politics up. These were top 40 rock and roll radio stations where politics was not discussed on the air. I'm just talking about getting along with the people you work with. Now, they had no impact on whether I would get hired or fired. They're fellow employees, but it was if somebody has a party and invites everybody to the weekend, do you go? And if you go, do you bring the stuff up? And if they brought politics up, I was going to be the only one who was, and I'll tell you this, even back then, just don't doubt me, I knew 100% why I believed what I believe, and none of them could tell me why they believed what they could believe. They only could tell me how they felt. They couldn't give me intellectual reasons other than to say conservatism sucks. Republicans are mean. They couldn't sell liberalism to me if their lives depended on it. And you probably encountered much the same thing.
Right. Yeah, I found myself in the exact situation. Usually any type of intellectual discussion ends in, oh, well, Trump's a racist. And I said, well, that discussion ended pretty quick. And I mean, I don't take it any further than that, because once the Islamophobia, the homophobia, the races, once it starts flying out,
don't even get sucked in, Kevin. Don't even get sucked into that. If they bring up the premise Trump's a racist and you start trying to defend it, that's not the way to deal with it. Tell them that they're bigots for thinking this. Turn it back on them and make them the focus of discussion and not Trump. When they say Trump's an Islamophobe, tell them they're crazy. You're absolutely crazy, and you're not listening. You're certainly not listening to Trump. You're listening to a bunch of people not to focus it, turn it back on them. Make them defend what they believe. Don't let them turn it on you. You have nothing to defend. You don't have to explain anything to these people. They're the ones that owe you the explanation, because they're the ones out there attacking and trying to assault you verbally. But the best technique is turn it around on them by questioning, how the hell do you, where do you get off believing this stuff? You can't even back that up. And then they'll try. They'll try, and you'll hear quotes of what they heard on The Daily Show, or they'll quote what they heard on a late-night comedy show, or they'll quote some YouTube video that they saw. But they can't tell you themselves why they think what they think.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have the same exact individual who will, who will cry and say, poor Syrians who are gassed by Assad, and then 1 week later they'll go back and say, oh my God, Trump has now started World War III and complain about it, and I'm kind of looking at them baffled. And then they'll even throw in, oh, well, Obama wouldn't have done this. And I'm thinking to myself, Obama's the reason why Trump had to make that decision to begin with.
Exactly. Exactly. You don't need any advice from me. That's exactly right. When the Syria thing comes up and they want to dump on Trump, you simply say the mess exists because of Barack Obama. You go all the way back to Iraq, and you say because Obama cut and ran out of Iraq, we have ISIS now. And Obama, with these phony threats and red lines in Syria, demonstrating we don't mean it when we huff and puff. And so they continue to gas and kill innocent people, and we've threatened all these years that we're not going to tolerate it. And Trump finally comes along and has put force to the policy. Again, they're the ones have to defend what they believe. Always try to turn it around rather than having you always be on the defensive. It's a favored tactic of the left.
Always rush. One last thing I want to point out, and this is the argument I usually use when they say that Obama was the savior of the Middle East. Something that I don't know why more people aren't screaming on the top of their lungs is that how in the world, I mean, you look at our relationship with Russia today, and they are, in fact, our largest geopolitical foe.
Right.
Well, tell me, how is it that Romney in 2012, in that debate, do you remember when Obama scoffed and mocked Romney?
Absolutely.
The 80s are calling and they want their foreign policy back. I mean, I replay that video so many times and I'm saying, how is it that a Massachusetts governor had more insight on our geopolitical foe than our standing 4-year president, and it baffles me. And people have no response to that. And it's amazing how clueless Obama was in foreign affairs 4 years ago, let alone now. And this is something that I want to scream off the top of my head.
Obama had two things that Romney would never have. A, Obama was African American, and that gave him a pass on any criticism. Any criticism was going to be called racist, so people didn't even try. You are crossing that line. You are now daring to criticize the great Barack Hussein O. So since you've crossed the line, you are the one that is behaving as a reprobate, because Obama is always going to be granted the latitude because of his intentions. Obama will always, by the left, be defended, exonerated from anything because he had the right idea. He really wanted to help. Maybe he didn't, but he cared and he tried. And Romney put his dog on the roof of the station wagon on vacation. Romney was mean. And that's, the real thing for you to do is run for the hills and avoid these people unless you can find a way to have fun turning it right back on them.